Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In the section Personality and Information, found in Chapter 6 of Stanislaw Lem Summa Technologiae, he is going to discuss something that's really central to a problem or paradox or thought experiment that has been brought up a little bit later on after he wrote this because of Star Trek and the use of the transporter technology, which, fits the bill for what he's talking about here. You have a physical object, in this case a human being. You come up with a complete description of it at an atomic level that goes into a computer, and then Lem talks about radio waves, but it could be whatever kind of radiation or information transfer you want. On the other side, that same person is reconstituted at an atomic level. Or are they? So Lem is going to say, not exactly, and you would actually, in a lot of cases, need to annihilate the original. That's actually the problem that gets brought up, because it seems like the Star Trek transporter or any other similar device is doing exactly that. It's destroying the original and putting a copy in its place, which is supposed to be the original. So he says that if we're going to telegraph the person, if we think about what's required here, the original must be annihilated or destroyed in some sort of way. And this is going to raise some problems, because if we're thinking about it, so Smith, the person who's being in this case, telegraphed or transported, he says, Smith can see the prospects of his telegraphic journey are not too rosy. He knows he's going to die because of, the way things are being set up. And the person who's going to emerge from the receiver will not just be similar to him. The promise is that they will actually be he himself, but he should have good reason to think that that's not actually the case. So if I were to say this to you, I will transport you electronically from where you are right now, but you have to die after I'm done with the process or during the process, and you will be pick some travel location you'd like to go to on the other side of the world. You will be reconstituted over there, and we'll even do that with your luggage and stuff like that as well, right? Why not throw all of those sorts of things in? And then you get to enjoy a nice vacation, and then instead of flying back, well, you just get back in the, information device, and we'll zoom you from over there to over here. Well, so long as it's really you who comes out on the other side, that's great. But if you are being killed in the process and just a copy of you that thinks that it's you exists, you haven't actually made this journey. And so he's going to say, what we've got here are informational and causal links between the different parts of the process. So he says, there exists an explicit causal link between each state a person finds himself in and his previous state. So I place a cube of sugar on my tongue. I feel sweetness just a little bit after that. There's a causal link. There is also a causal link, he says, between Mr. Smith and his atomic description. The device that takes the reading and acquires that information, it's being caused by the existence of Mr. Smith and the actions that are happening, right? And going beyond that, the description looks the way that it does because we've acted on Smith's body in a certain way. Similarly, there is an informational and causal link between the atomic description and whatever copies come out of the receivers, because those copies have been constructed in accordance with the protocol of the description. That sounds pretty good, right? But is there a link between Mr. Smith, the person, and the Mr. Smith or Smiths who pop out on the other side? No, there is no direct link between them. And he's going to say that, what is the link between those transformations? Smith is a living organism. Smith has transmitted information, multiple Smiths, and Mr. Smith's death, which we brought on right after his atomic description. Let us be clear about it. There is no link between the two. And he says, okay, consider another possibility. We've got a Rembrandt painting. We're going to put that through the telegrapher, and we'll come out with a copy on the other side. And we destroy the painting in doing so. Now we don't actually have a Rembrandt painting in the sense of the original, right? It has not become the original as the result of this act. Why? Because it hasn't turned into the object made of wood and canvas. Okay, if we stopped right there, yes, it has. It's reconstituted as wood and canvas, but it's not the object that the renowned Dutch painter covered with paint several hundred years ago. It is empirically indistinguishable from the original, but it's not the original because it has a different history. Okay, so we could say that about an organic human being, but with a human being, there's more. There's consciousness. The painting is not conscious of itself, and the consciousness is not being transferred in some more important link of identity. A little bit later on, he's going to say, well, we could postulate a soul, but that's not actually going to help us out here. What if we have multiple copies? Does that soul go into each of the multiple copies? What, there's like souls existing in different places? That's not going to be particularly helpful. So this changes the moral status of telegraphing or transporting or teleporting people by information transfer, doesn't it? So he says, if we kill Smith while assuring him he's going to wake up soon in a million locations at the same time, it will certainly be a wicked act. A murder whose traces will be cybernetically erased with a surplus. Instead of one murdered person, many such persons will appear, and they'll all be identical. And he says the murderous aspect of this act seems self-evident, since if we want to telegraph a person, it's not enough to transmit his atomic description. The person also has to be killed. If we're going to, make them take the trip through the wires, across the radio waves, whatever it's going to be, well, we got to destroy what's on the other side. And he says he's got a kind of gruesome scenario. Let's imagine we're transmitting Smith's description. Copies of his person are already starting to appear in the receiver's exit. The original is still alive and does not know what has happened. Can we expect him to stay in our company until we approach him with a hammer, and the moment we've smashed his skull, suddenly to become, in a way unbeknownst to us, either one of those other telegraphed persons or all of them at the same time? What is it exactly that's supposed to transport him, not just his information, him, to the other end of the telegraphic wire if the signal transmission itself didn't do it? A blow with a hammer to the back of the head? So he says, a suspicion of this kind does not signal a paradox, but a pure absurdity. Smith is going to be dead forever and ever. Telegraphing a person is actually out of the question. We only make copies. And that's not the same thing as the person. Then he says, okay, well, what if we consider a different kind of scenario? What if we have a person who's alive and we, do the information gathering, put them in the machine, and then we don't do anything with that. We keep a copy of that information. In the case of the Star Trek transporter, this means it goes into the buffer, right? If you're familiar with the television series, right? And then you can bring people out of it. Every once in a while, there's a mistake. For example, in The Next Generation, there's 2 Rikers because one got kept in the buffer and then let out a little bit later and the other one went through. So, we could store people perhaps in what he calls a personality bank. We could imagine like a server farm where all of your information at this given moment, they do a scan of you and it's like at the atomic level and they've got a copy of you. Now, maybe you need to go in like every day to make sure that it's up to date. So your memories would be, exactly what they are. Now imagine you die. Right? You fall down a well or you're hiking somewhere and an avalanche happens or a grizzly bear eats you up. What is your family to do? So he's got a great example here. He says, the family could go to the bank and have the matrix inserted into an atomic synthesizer, after which, to everybody's amazement, the tragically killed person would come out of the device and fall into the arms of his mourning relatives. This is indeed possible. But, as we know by now, such a joyous scene does not in any way cancel the death of the original. But no murder's been committed. Only a victim of an accident or illness has been successfully replicated by his atomic double. So there's no moral compunctions that would make such an undertaking unacceptable, at least within a given civilization. So your relatives could be happy with that. Society could be happy with that. Would you be happy with it? Would it be you that's been brought back to life? He says it would not be an existential reserve for oneself to guarantee one's continued individual existence. All you're actually ensuring is that some living double will be created after you're dead, or perhaps even while you're still alive, right? So he says, when I fall down a ravine or die in some way, my double will replace me, but I will not be alive then. The temporal coexistence of the original and copy proves this. The relationship, he suggests, is like one between twins, not identity. And then a little bit later in the work, he's going to bring up a final wrinkle on this. He talks about using 2 different machines. So machine O and machine N. The first one saves the person to be telegraphed, right? So the person remains in good health. But N destroys the atomic structure of the examined person during the process of collecting information, which is why at the end of the process we have one dead person or perhaps dispersed atomic remnants, as well as a full record. And we could consider the Star Trek transporter as being like a device N, right? It breaks down the matter of the person, turns it into information, and then shoots it out somewhere else, right? So one of the things that Lem is going to say is the 2 different devices are going to create the same amount of information, but it would seem like using N wouldn't be problematic for somebody who is teleporting or transporting another person, because that's just the way the machine works. It's not like they are transporting them with device O, which doesn't kill them, and then coming up with a hammer later and killing them. That's the way it works. It breaks your body down or kills you or whatever it's going to do. And then the idea is the other person should pop out on the other side, the person who you have transmitted in that way. And he says, okay, so that gets you off the hook if you're the person like pushing the button, but it doesn't do anything for you finding out that you're the person being telegraphed, because you're still dead. Right? There's no you in the full sense that's coming out on the other end. There is a copy of you, a very, very, very good copy, but a copy
nonetheless. So there's some interesting paradoxes and absurdities being raised here in this section of the consideration of what it would be to telegraph a person by turning them into pure information and then reconstituting them or something very much like them on the other side.